The NFL draft is right around the corner, so we're going to start looking at some prospects here. Today, the question posed by Teddy Bruschi on ESPN: is Bryce Young too small for the NFL? Now, before he gets going here, first of all, Teddy Bruschi has an all-time hairline. Maybe the greatest hairline of all time. Unbelievable from Teddy. I personally think Bryce Young is too small. Now, a lot of people are going to point to his height, so Bryce is going to clock in somewhere in between 5'10 and 5'11 and a half. He's going to weigh somewhere in the neighborhood of 180 to 195, 200 pounds at the top, somewhere in there. I'm not so concerned with Bryce Young's height because I think now that a majority of snaps, passing plays are being taken from the shotgun, a little less of that matters. It certainly still does matter for some quarterbacks. Smaller quarterbacks obviously get the ball batted down more, blah, blah, blah. I don't have to explain to you why being taller is better. But I think the NFL is changing as far as the height factor. What will never change is the frame. And I think Bryce Young's frame is just really, really small. And when you look at other short quarterbacks like Kyler Murray, like Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray both have probably 20 pounds on Bryce Young. You know, Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson are both thick in the... This is going to be tough for me when it comes to clipping this video. But both of them are thick legs, thick in the lower half. Jalen Hurts is a guy who is strong. You know, you can tell me, you've seen the videos of him squatting 600 pounds, 700 pounds or whatever. Bryce doesn't have that. You know, Bryce is kind of just me. If I put on about 10 pounds, if I was trying to play in the NFL, if I put on like 10-ish pounds, I'd probably be right around where Bryce is. And I do not have the frame to play in the NFL. I do not have the frame to handle that. Now, I want to put this in perspective as well. If there's anything you remember from this video, in the last 22 years, if you look at quarterbacks who are between 5'10 and 6 feet, and they also are between 180 and 200 pounds, how many quarterbacks do you think have started a game in the NFL with that height and weight? So, again, the quarterback has to be between 5'10 and 6 feet, and they have to weigh between 180 and 200 pounds. How many have started an NFL game? Go ahead and think. Go ahead and let me know. Type down in the comments below your guess, and then let me know how close you were to the real answer. The answer is 6, okay? A lot of you probably said Kyler Murray. He's over 200 pounds. A lot of you probably said Russell Wilson. He's over 200 pounds. A lot of you probably said Drew Brees. He's over 200 pounds, okay? So 6 quarterbacks in the last 20 years have started an NFL game. How many have thrown more than 10 touchdown passes in their career? The answer is 2. 2 in the last 20 plus years. Doug Flutie and Tim Rattay. All right, so that kind of puts it into perspective how much this just doesn't happen. A player with Bryce's height and weight, they just don't play in the NFL. They don't hold up in the NFL. They don't exist. They don't even really get a chance. So I'm really worried about that physical side of Bryce Young.
Jalen Hurts, one of the strongest, most physical quarterbacks, also suffered the injury to the collarbone. You barely make it towards the end. Does Bryce Young have the frame and the toughness to make it through the course of a playoff run? Because we're just not talking about a quarterback to be successful in games. I always go to where, can he win you a championship after a regular season,
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. You know, honestly, that's a good point. A lot of the draft, I have a lot of problem with the draft combine and the whole draft process. It's way too, like, you know, the hand size, the 40, all that stuff like that. That just really doesn't matter that much, you know, and it's way too, like, in-game stuff like Teddy's talking about. You know, we all know about Jamarcus Russell's arm, but that had nothing to do really with his failures or successes in the NFL. The NFL is different, especially the quarterback position. I think how we look at quarterbacks is kind of messed up. But Teddy's right here. You know, when you're drafting a quarterback, you have to draft them with the mindset of this person can take me to a Super Bowl. This person can take me to a conference championship, can win a division, can be an MVP. No one's drafting a quarterback hoping they'll be average. No one's drafting a quarterback hoping they'll be mediocre, right? So, yeah, if you draft him, are you sure that Bryce can hold up through an entire season. We see quarterbacks and running backs and wide receivers get hurt or get plagued with injury, or they're always hurt, and how much that takes away from how good they are. So it is a grind. That is something you would have to look at, just like you would look at Bryce's ability to throw the football.
A preseason and a long playoff run get you through the Super Bowl. Does he have the body that can get through that? Right now, I think that's what the Chicago Bears have to decide.
Yeah, that's the big question. And so let me bring this out here, because Darlington has some thoughts on this. But Mike T, I'll start with you, and I'll give you the credit. When the Bears locked up the first pick in the draft, I will admit, the notion that they would move on from Justin Fields and take a quarterback did not enter my mind at all. I thought, ooh, what a treasure trove of picks they're going to get to trade that pick away to someone who wants one. You were the first person to put in my head the idea that maybe it goes the other way. Here we are, 2 months removed from that, or whatever it has been. If you were sitting in that seat right now, would you trade away Justin Fields and take Bryce Young #1?
I would not. I mean, I've made a video on this before about Justin Fields being a trade bait, and people lamented in the comments that the Bears would never, ever do this. For the record, I said it then, I'll say it now. I think this is the Bears putting that out there to jack up the trade value. So obviously the reason they would do that is they want other teams to think, damn, they're going to hold on to this pick. So they're going to force other teams to trade more to get the pick. I don't think. Now, with that being said, if there was like a Cam Newton out there or an Andrew Luck out there or a player that they were a little bit more sure about, I guess, okay, maybe they would trade Fields and start over. But I think Fields is better than Bryce Young. I think Fields has a higher ceiling than Bryce Young. I think he's more polished than Bryce Young. I think he's got a little bit more. We saw what he could do with his legs. I like Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields is going to be a good quarterback. I think he's going to be a successful quarterback in the league. I like him a lot. If I was the Bears, if Justin Fields was in this draft, he would go first overall. I think Justin Fields is better than C.J. Stroud too. I mean, I think he would be the best player in this draft. So I don't think it makes any sense for the Bears to trade Fields with the mindset of taking Bryce Young.
Yes, 100%. Bryce Young, to me, will be the much better quarterback long-term, taking nothing away from Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields will be a solid B+, but this guy right here, Greeny, I think he has a chance to be an A. He is small. I just spent time with him out at the Super Bowl. There's no getting around it. He is small, but I think he's special, and I give Todd McShay the credit. He was the first one to mention Steph Curry, someone who's undersized but historically great. I think he has short area quickness, lower body flexibility to sort of minimize that. And to Teddy's point, Greeny, 68 quarterbacks this year started a game. So they came in all shapes and sizes in terms of quarterback.
Look, I mean, I'll go head up with this guy. I'll put my line in the sand. I don't think Bryce Young will be a great quarterback. And to say that he'll be an A, what would y'all say an A is? A Pro Bowler? Somewhere in there? Like a Pro Bowl? To me, an A is like a top 10, top 8 kind of quarterback. Like a potential MVP, playoffs. You can win a Super Bowl with an A quarterback. When I think of an A quarterback, I wouldn't even put like Kirk Cousins and people like that as I wouldn't put them as an A quarterback. I would put like Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, people like that are like A quarterbacks to me. Obviously Patrick Mahomes and players like that, but I just don't see that. If you told me like what's the ceiling for Bryce Young, I mean maybe Tua. Like I think Tua is probably a decent comp. Is Tua an A quarterback? No. Is Tua a B quarterback? Maybe, barely, I would say. So if that's the comp, all right. But if I look, this isn't a Justin Fields video, but if I could have Tua or Justin Fields, I would take Justin Fields.
Quarterback injuries, including guys like Dak Prescott. So you need a number 2 guy regardless of who you're starting.
Understood, but I mean, you used a very specific phrase there. They do not come in this size particularly often. I mean, don't get Bryce Young. Look, I want nothing but for the kid to have enormous success. I hate to be the one sitting up here voicing this concern, but don't get him confused with Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is not small. He's
I said this at the beginning of the video, but there is a difference between being short and being small. Kyler, and I don't know these guys personally, but I can just tell from their measurables or how they look. People come in different sizes. I'm like 5'10 and a half, 170, but I would consider myself a bigger 170, like physically to see me. But there's other people who are 170 and they're like skin and bones. Like people hold their weight and height differently. And Bryce Young, I think, is a good example of that. There was a picture of him I saw with ESPN's Mina Kimes, and the height is whatever because Mina was in high heels, but the frames, it's crazy to see Bryce Young, and hopefully when I'm editing this video I can find that photo, but Bryce Young's frame, his shoulders, his torso is pretty similar to Mina, and Mina I don't think she's got the frame to be an NFL player. And you think about quarterbacks like Ben Roethlisberger and bigger quarterbacks and just bigger guys, and you think about their chest and their shoulders and how they look, and then you look at Bryce Young and you can just tell he's the opposite of that. So yeah, don't get that mistaken. It's nothing to do with his height. It's strictly to do with his size, like his physical body.
Merely short. Bryce Young his frame is much smaller, and so that is of concern. Jeff, as you talk to people about Bryce Young and in particular about Fields, I mean, let's live in that world for a minute. Just the idea that the Bears might take this guy who showed so much potential in a world where Jalen Hurts just took this massive step a year ago and move on. What are you hearing, Jeff?
Yes.
I think the idea that the Bears would contemplate this is different than the idea of them actually doing it. And
this is what I'm saying. I think they will contemplate it. Man, it's a tough time to pause for this guy. I think they will contemplate it because they want to hear all the options. But they're going to trade the pick. I'll tell you this: if they don't trade the pick, they ain't taking. They're not taking Bryce Young. They'll take Jalen Carter or somebody else. But I fully believe the Bears will trade this pick. I fully believe the Colts will move up and go to number 1.
That's an important distinction right now. They've got time to figure this out, but they do need to do the math on it. They need to figure out exactly what that number 1 overall pick is worth. If they can get the Texans and the Colts both kind of leveraging each other to try to move up to that number 1 spot, then all of a sudden you're getting a haul. But if you lose one or both of those teams and they decide they're not going to do it, suddenly you have to decide maybe this pick is worth us just taking the player. And then you've got to figure out what Justin Fields is worth. Now, I'm not saying they ultimately do it. I think that the number 1 overall pick will have the value that they want. I just think it's something that they're really going to have to consider in the coming months.
Teddy, I want to bring up 2 names here. Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts are 2 players who came into the league with a particular set of skills, and then we saw just massive development in both of their games to where they are now elite NFL quarterbacks. Justin Fields, from what you've seen of him, if they put an NFL offensive line in front of him, which he did not have last year, if they put NFL skill position players around him, which he did not have last year, could you see him as a player who makes that kind of jump in his career?
I can. I think he's very similar to Jalen Hurts. Josh Allen's a little different as Josh Allen has arguably like the best arm in the NFL. So Fields can sling it, but I don't think Fields has Allen's arm. But Allen and Hurts both kind of progressed the same way. They all of a sudden became very, very impactful in the run game. And I don't mean scrambling. I mean impactful in like the designed runs. And once they started doing that, and once the system was built around them, then you saw their careers take off. I think Justin Fields can for sure do that. I mean, Fields showed last year how good he is as a runner. So if they find some more design runs for Field, kind of sprinkle that in, there's no reason Justin Fields can't be in the same kind of offensive world as Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen. That's high praise, no doubt about it. That's high praise. But when you have the physical capabilities and you prove that you can play in the NFL, that's the biggest part of it. Like, you got to be able to prove, okay, you can do it for a sustained amount of time. If you do it for 1 game, 2 games, and then it's a disaster, different story. A system can't be built around anyone. But Fields has had relative success for like Greeny said, as bad of an offensive line as he had and as bad of a team around him as he had, really good stuff, really, especially to end the year. So I fully think, I mean, this is turning into me just waxing poetic about Justin Fields, but if they if the Bears designed their offense around Fields and he turned more into a Jalen Hurts kind of player or a Josh Allen kind of player with the runs, 100% he could do it.
The biggest jump a quarterback can take is going to happen if you have an offensive line in front of him. This guy was running for his life, okay, last year.
I mean, look at that
all
hair.
the time, and that's why the impressive numbers of, I think it was 7 yards a carry. You don't want those numbers for your quarterback that he's taking off and running all the time. You got to give this guy a chance to see what he is with an offensive line ahead of him. And those two quarterbacks you mentioned, right, the physical specimens of Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. Each of them also, I mean, Allen's elbow, all right? You saw the hit he took up on the arm. He dealt with something. Hurts dealt with something. There is always something to where toughness and durability at the quarterback position is so important. You're bringing a player that's slightly framed. Now, we're not talking about a second-round pick or a third-round pick.
Yeah, it's a first overall pick. That's the thing. You know, the whole, like, whatever the other guy was saying about how, you know, every team needs a backup, every team needs this. It's like, look, that's all fine, but you're talking about the first overall pick. You're talking about the franchise. You're talking about the guy, you know, to take a risk like that. I just don't know if it's worth it with Bryce Young.
This is number one overall. Number one overall, and you're bringing a kid in that possibly, I don't know, this is 18 weeks, 17 games, and then
the bad thing about being a first overall pick is, like, he can't develop. I mean, the days of that are kind of over. You know, if you're taking first overall, you're expected to start. If Bryce Young is taken first overall by, let's just say, the Colts, he's going to be starting by at least week 4, week 5. So if you're taking him and you're like, oh, we can bulk him up or we can do this or we can do that, you better do it real quick, because he's going to be expected to be your starting quarterback come that first month of the season.
Playoffs, it has to be thought about the durability of the most important position you have on your team.
Look, I mean, here's the thing, that I'm not suggesting that Justin Fields is going to wind up being a better player than Jalen Hurts. But what I can tell you is he was a better prospect. He was a better prospect every minute of his college career, going back, and no one knows that better than you do. You scout these guys, Mike, from the time that they're in high school. I mean, if Justin Fields winds up being a better player than Jalen Hurts, that wouldn't be an upset.
Right, but here's the concern about Justin Fields. 140 over the last 2 years, interceptions, fumbles, and sacks. That is the most in the NFL, and he only played in 27 games.
But he's on the worst team in the sport. He's on a team. He's on the least talented team in the entire sport.
And those numbers will get better. I agree with all that. But when you're saying compared to a guy like Bryce Young, their ceilings to me are apples and oranges. One's going to be a B. Bryce Young has a chance to be an A.
All right, but
I don't see it. I don't know. I mean, I just don't know why you'd be so definitive against Justin Fields and doubling down on Bryce Young being as good. I would be shocked. I really would. I would be shocked. I've been watching this for a long time. I mean, y'all know the wisdom that I expel on here on a daily basis. I've been watching the game for a long time. I would be absolutely stunned if Bryce Young was really successful in the NFL. I would be shocked. Let me know in the comments below, ladies and gentlemen. They're about to get onto a different subject here. So let me know in the comments below what you think. Is Bryce Young too small? Is he too small to succeed in the NFL? What's his ceiling? Let me know in the comments below. What is your ceiling? And also, did you get the trivia right? Did you get how many quarterbacks at that size started a game in the NFL? Remember, ladies and gentlemen, in the last 20 years, only 6 and only 2 have thrown more than 10 touchdowns. Thank you for watching. I will see you later.